Friday. I'm Derrick Day, and he is.
I'm Aaron Tomlinson.
And
And
Doug Wentz.
Doug. Doug is our special guest tonight. Hang on for a second. I'm checking Facebook to see if we're live here, just to see if we beat it this time, or if we're still no, we're still sucking in that area. So let's go to YouTube
Okay.
and let's see. Hang on for a second. Boy, I tell you, this is something else. So YouTube. And my channel.
Yep, we're definitely live on YouTube.
Oh, we are right now? Wow.
Yep. So yep.
Right.
Yep, we are live. We are live. So let's share this to Facebook. And it would ask me for my fucking password, wouldn't it? Damn, did I say that on the air? Yeah, I did. Okay, hang on for a second. I gotta get my password. So anyway, how are you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Doug? How are you doing?
Doing well. Doing well. Had a pretty good day so far.
Good.
And that is not the right password. So,
Did we redo it?
hang on.
I'm just going to go ahead and share the link.
Yeah, just share the link. Yeah,
For now, I'm going to do that. Yeah.
because it is.
Let's see how that looks.
What's that?
Oh, your card there says, "Good news is there is no God."
Yeah. Sorry for all the non-atheist crowd out there. Well, let me see if I can. I'm going to share this.
Hello, YouTube land.
Hello, everybody. All right, so let's see. It says it's posting. It's thinking. No. Okay, so there we go. So let's do this. But we're live, and I think we already. I'm Derrick Day, in case anybody cares.
And I'm Aaron Tomlinson.
Doug Wentz.
And Doug is our special guest tonight.
Hey.
Yeah. Welcome to some Phreology hospitality.
Yeah, the hospitality is great, even though the tech sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been going at it for 30 minutes trying to get online.
I know, man.
I'm a little wore out, but I'll make it.
And you know what, man? It's like it's bad when one of the co-hosts is an IT guy and can't get this shit straight. That's bad. But anyway, that being said, what's in the glass tonight, gentlemen? Because we must have drinks in our hands.
Oh, yes.
I've just got some nice red wine. Gonna just relax.
What does it say on what grape or what is it? Like a Malbec, Cabernet, something?
It's a Merlot and it's
Merlot,
cheap.
okay.
Cheap AF.
Okay.
It works.
All right. Yes, it does.
So I've got a couple of beers going here, right? This
Oh
one
man,
here,
I almost did that tonight.
this is called Founder's Dirty Bastard Scotch Pale or Scotch Style Ale.
All right. All right.
So that's one. But because I figured that I would at least need two to talk to Doug, I've got this. This is Brother Thelonious Belgian Style Abbey Ale. And it has a picture of Dr. Thelonious Monk, the jazz great, on the label.
Yeah.
So I'm just when I saw that, I'm a big Monk fan. So it was like I saw that and I'm like, I gotta buy this just because. And it actually turned out to be really good beer.
Yeah. Thelonious Monk was on PBS radio all the time when I was in high school. Yep. And Miles Davis. I love Miles Davis. So, guys, I was a mixologist bartender for a good while, and I made a great Sazerac, Vieux Carré, various New Orleans drinks, but I can't drink alcohol any longer due to certain blood sugar and health issue. So, my drink, what's in my cup tonight is one espresso.
Espresso. All right.
Yep.
Well, that's okay. You're still getting wired one way or the other. So
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So
Earthy, pungent bliss, the taste thereof.
Right.
Yeah.
the way we typically do this when we have a guest, and Doug, we gave you the briefing ahead of time, but basically this is your show. Whatever it is that you want to talk about is what we're going to talk about, and Aaron and I will play your trusty foil during this episode. But we know that you're going to bring the thunder, and we're really excited about having you, man. So
Yeah.
let's let her rip.
It's just good to be here. Yeah. Yeah. I've watched your show a lot of times, and let me just start by saying that your show has been therapeutic. And I like to think I've become pretty in tune over the past 13 years in deconstruction with my subconscious, and I notice things going on in the deep subconscious from when you teachings on deconstruction, teachings that set people free from an old way of thinking. I feel it. I know what you're saying, but I also feel it in my heart, and I feel it in a deep place within me. So I'm full of gratitude for your show. Appreciate that a lot. I've sojourned with you guys in deconstruction, but I did it. A lot of the people in this following sort of really got hardcore about undoing some old things around 2015, 2020. Mine started more like 2008.
Yep.
And Spirit showed me some things that I wasn't able to acclimate to until about 2011. And so in 2011 is when I was really out in the open about, this is who I am now.
Yep.
And so my following through Pentecostal holiness and the various third day theology people, of course they dropped me. Of course I would expect them to, because how can two walk together except they be agreed? And so, but I've after several years of intensely renouncing Christianity, it took years of doing it. A ceremony with what I call Creator God, totally tearing all of that, every trace of it out of my heart. And after several years of publicly talking about this, then there came a day when I was able, maybe around 2018, I had an experience where I went back in time, so to speak, and gave a big heartfelt hug to every past version of myself. And I was able to sort of have a coagulation, if you will, of every version of me from the past. The late 80s, intense legalism. 1995 until 2010, grace theology. And then universalism, and then the universality of God. So Gnosticism is part of all that. I like to say this, it was an inner knowing the whole time. We're born into a genetic code, a genetic ancestral reality that makes any spiritual awakening feel like Christianity if you're born in that culture. If you're born across the pond, any spiritual awakening will make it feel like that's Allah, or if you're born from a lineage of Wicca, I sense Diana, Hecate, Lilith, whoever, in the moment, and so to undo the fundamentalism is no joke. It's taking your life support system off. Mm-hmm. It whatever was feeding the dopamine to your brain, it can't feed that dopamine to your brain anymore. So it is a midnight of the soul. So anyway, now here we are today, and I know we can get into what I want to get into, though, after a little comment from you guys or whatever. What I want to get into is formulae and geometry. Formulae with an E at the end.
Yep.
And geometry of the heart, how it doesn't actually change when we change religions. It only changes when we undo the age of mankind that we were born into and the cultural reality that we were born into. So, yeah. Give me a comment on that, Aaron.
So I just want to say before we get too deep in the content, how much I appreciate you, Doug, and I just want to give you some public recognition. You've been an incredible friend. You've been a great confidant. Especially when I was in the throes of deconstruction, you were a few years ahead of me, but your background was similar enough to mine that you could relate. We could relate totally on that level. Mm-hmm. And the times I would just get pissed off and call you and could just be myself and be pissed off.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think I remember I called you. I think I remember messaging you or calling you at one point where I was like probably drunk off my ass because I was drowning my sorrows, and you just laughed at me. No judgment with that or anything. And so I just want to acknowledge you as just one of my as a forerunner in this, and someone that's just offered me tremendous support, and someone that I can call a friend. And
I appreciate that. I feel that in my heart. Thank you. And likewise to yourself as well.
And I'm excited to do this episode because I know I'm going to be challenged and grow because you have a depth that you come from that a lot of people don't. And so I'm excited about having you on here, man. So
good. Thank you. Anything, Derrick, or you want me to?
No, Doug. It's like I echo Aaron's sentiments and say that basically the same. I can't say that you and I have been particularly close.
Yeah, we just recently connected.
Yeah, but our trajectories have followed a similar path, and so I've been with you through the grace movement and deconstructing to inclusionism and to universalism. And mysticism, and with me, it's just I just took a step further and just said, okay, I'm going to shit can all of it. But I have to give both you and Aaron some credit here in my spiritual development, because in atheism I actually flirted with materialism, but Aaron was very gentle in nudging me into seeing a different plane of reality, and so that that's the contribution that you guys have made. But one of the things I want to talk about is there was a post that you posted last Friday or it was last Saturday, and and it so moved me. I thought it was probably the most profound post that I had read in 2023. And so I'm like, holy fuck, I've got to call Doug. I've got to figure out how to reach out to him. So I sent you a private message on Facebook, but I finally have your phone number, you have mine, and we talked and we chopped it up for a minute. And
we did.
And that was sort of the genesis of the show. Aaron and I have talked about having you on for a long time because of just your contributions to metaphysical and mystical understanding. That these are things that have helped us to help shape us, help grow us. And so I'm really excited about having you on today because if we have a tagline for this show, it's growing in real time. And I'm expecting that today.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So go back to my ministry years. Okay. So I was received by apostles in Zambia and South Africa and several cities in the U.S. as a prophet of Christ within the Pentecostal Holiness denomination and a little bit of Vineyard too. Let's talk about my existence there and what I learned in the end and why that had to end for me. Okay. And how am I different now compared to then? And I want to get into something that I don't hear talked about too often here. All right. So what made me be recognized by my leadership as ready for the ministry was cultivating what I'm going to, okay, let me throw out a couple concepts. Light body, dark body, masculine, spirit, soul. Catchphrases from the Apostle Paul, crucified with Christ, crucified your dark body to emanate only your light body. In Grace Movement, we surpass legalism, which is the power of your own psyche, the power of your own will to do right, do the will of God. And we surpassed that. We went beyond it and we said, oh, it's the law of attraction is how this actually works, to emanate only your light body and suppress your dark body. But we didn't call it suppressing. We said we annihilate it. It doesn't exist. It's a lie. It's non-existent. And what I did was I said, only the things, and this is the Grace Movement, only the things that Jesus says about me are true. We took 40% of what Jesus said. We didn't take his rebukes to his fellow man, the Pharisees. We just made that non-existent. Overturning the tables in the temple, you are of your father the devil, you are a whitewashed wall. We just canceled that out. And we said, where he said, love one another, where he said, where are your accusers? Neither do I condemn you. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. We just took that on, pretended that was the only thing Jesus ever said or did, and then said, we are that.
Right.
We said this, the only real me is Jesus.
Yep.
What you see in Jesus is the only thing that actually exists in me. Let's cut away all the lies. I have a sexual urge. Oh, that's a lie. So cut it out. By truth, what we call truth. And the only truth we align with is what we believe Jesus was.
Right.
Okay. In New Age, it's high vibration and positive thought is the only you that exists. So if you have a negative emotion, just know that doesn't actually exist, and you just cut it out and it doesn't exist anymore. And in the moment it feels good, kind of like if you had a crying baby and you got sick of hearing your crying baby, you put it in the room, lock the door, put your headphones on, and what do you do with your crying baby? You lose the awareness, and now you're in bliss. Whatsoever is pure, whatsoever is lovely, if there be any good report, think on these things. So now I don't hear my crying baby. And the bill collector calls, and you just ignore it. Oh, there is no bill collector. It's a lie. It doesn't exist. So all these life realities, we only emanated the light body of, we spoke what we wanted to create and not what we didn't want to create. Okay? So if I was in a charismatic service, I would say, somebody say success. Success. We achieved, I'm going to be real here. We achieved, me and my peers, we achieved success. We emanated the split off of our solar or light body, masculine blueprint for what we wanted to create. We spoke to create. So in the 7th year of being a prophet in the local church in Phoenix, I stopped prophesying to people, and I trained the people how to prophesy to them, how to create their own future. I was Abraham and Esther Hicks. I was Joe Dispenza in the Christian church. Everything was metaphor in scripture, and everything was how to create the positive, how to split the light body up and just emanate that and nothing else. One day in 2009, I was polishing glasses, getting the room set up because I was a waiter at a nice establishment there. And I'm going on at that point, let's see, from 95 until 2010 is 50. So I'm going on year 14. I'm going on 14 years of mastering positive creation. All my prophecies came to pass by 2003. Everything that was all destinies, all prophecies that were spoken over me in the late 80s, all had been fulfilled by 2003, 2004. I had learned how to manifest destinies and prophecies and so on, and how to only have positive thought, how to never allow negative emotions or negative thoughts. If I had a negative emotion, I was going through, I dart into my room and shout praises and shout glory to God and shout praises more and more and more until finally that realm would come about, the presence would come about, and the thing that was bothering me wouldn't exist anymore. But I want to tell you, the dark body that you think you annihilated, all you did was lock the door of awareness. Because when you shut that crying baby away, you're not aware when you put the music on, you're not aware of the crying baby, but the crying baby still exists.
Yeah.
And then if you do it enough, your baby dies, and now you're in misery. And so what me and myself and many of my peers did, I'll just speak for myself. What I did was I shut the crying baby up instead of taking my light body and integrating with my dark body to create something new, something that is greater than the light, something that is greater than the darkness of the feminine energy of emotion, will, sexuality, something that is greater than blueprint, something that is greater than the birthing process. You put them together and fuse them, it creates a new creation that is greater than either alone. So what happened in 2009, after just manifesting my light body only, thinking it was the will of Creator God to do that, even though Jesus said, I am, right in Revelation 22, Jesus didn't say I am the light body. He said, I am twilight. I am Lucifer. Lucifer was Venus. Venus was the star you see when day is turning into night and night is turning into day. Yep. If you combine the two, the fusion of light and darkness, where you allow your light and your darkness to have equal say, equal expression, then they come together and neither is toxic. The spirit is no longer aloof and detached, and the feminine energy is not bitter, and it's not toxic, and it's not angry. How can the feminine energy be angry when the spirit is holding her in his loving arms? And how can the spirit not understand emotion if he's holding emotion in his arms? They can't. They both are coming together to prove something. I am Lucifer, Jesus said in Revelation 22. In other words, I am twilight. I am perpetual motion of light and darkness fused as one. Twilight is when night becomes day and day becomes night. Those are the two times that they could see the star Venus. Yep. So what happened in 2009 after 15 years of grace theology, intimacy, Jesus was the intimate bridegroom lover of my soul, and I felt loved at all times. And anytime I had a sexual temptation, I could rest in his arms. But you see what's happening there? All emotion, all childhood trauma, all sexual energy, it's all being shut away and locked in the basement. And let me tell you, it starts growing, and you lose self-awareness because you're only God aware. I'm only aware of spirit. I am love, I am light, I am spirit, and I'm nothing else than that. So the darkness starts growing unawares, and you start, in the self-life will eventually start taking over. The dark body isn't the holy dark body any longer. Now it's what you told it was. Gentlemen, pretend like your wives don't exist for a week and see what they do to you. Pretend like your wife doesn't exist and see how bitter she becomes. And that's what's happening with your feminine energy when you force it to submit to your masculine energy. So what happened in 2009 was I was polishing glasses one day after mastering positive thinking, positive thought, and positive manifestation for 15 years. And Spirit says to me, and so for the atheist crowd, I want to say, when Spirit spoke, I want to say this: there's a proven electromagnetic field that goes 6 feet in diameter around the human heart. Yep. And that you can tap into it, and if you want, you can learn how to divine information from your electromagnetic field or your aura, which is comprised of, the aura is the emotional aspect of that. Yep. Where it's comprised, your energy field is comprised of every thought, every word, everything you've ever done, said.
That's like when you walk into a room, you say, like, I sense a vibe, right?
Right, right.
That energy is emanated from others. That energy is emanated from yourself, and that energy, to Aaron, what Aaron talks about consciousness, right? This merging of energies is that confluence of consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. So my consciousness merges with your consciousness, and I sense something that's either good for me or not good for me.
Yes, and then there are people who have an ear for music. Yep. Then there are people who train their ear for music or their voice. And then there are people who, no matter how much training, they're never going to have an ear for music or sing. Right. So and same thing with the spirit. There are people who were born, like me, born hearing spirit. And then there's people that have trained the ear to be able to tap into spirit and practice the art of siphoning or divining information. For a Baptist, it would be an impression on the heart. For a Pentecostal, it would be an actual voice, a spirit world voice. And Aaron, you talked about actual entities in your last broadcast. I'm so happy you bring that up, because that's a whole nother subject too. But for our purposes tonight, I'm just going to talk about the voice of our higher self, which has an existence within time and space in our soul. And it also carries an existence in the spirit world, because it is made of primarily spirit. So that's how it could know things that you don't know yet. That's how it told me things that were going to happen the next day, and they happened. Okay, so I'm polishing glasses, and spirit says to me, a person who not only mastered positive thought and positive manifestation, but also was teaching it. Spirit of God asked me this question: are most of your thoughts positive or negative? And, there's been times where spirit has kind of told me a joke or made me laugh. And I thought, I'm thinking, okay, you're joking, right? I teach positive thought. I've mastered it. I paid a price. It took everything to get to this place, and I was about to respond to spirit and say, well, positive. And spirit took me through my daily existence every day, what I experienced throughout every single day for the last year or so. And I saw it with open eyes that most of my thoughts were now negative.
Mm.
And it, like the frog, you put it in the water and then you simmer it and it doesn't notice, and then it's too late.
Yep.
I learned that the dark subconscious and emotion and sexuality, it is also a creator, because it's the sovereign image of God also. Light and darkness is the sovereign one image of the one God. Abba and Imma are equal, mother and father. And in us, the masculine and feminine really is one. So whatever we put in the darkness of our subconscious and lock it down in our basement so that we're not aware of it anymore, so it can't affect us, it can't bother us, it will create, in the long game, it took 15 years almost before the darkness that I put that I locked away in my deep subconscious of unawareness began to seep up so gradually that I didn't notice it happening. And see, now I can look back and see people who are experiencing that, and they don't know they're experiencing that. I can see profile pictures of positive ministers and thought leaders of Positivity Tribe, and I see stress just flowing out of their pores, and they don't know it. Because when we don't conjoin our light and darkness, when we only emanate the light body, the dark body will have its turn. Say that again. When we only emanate our light body, we do create positive things, that is for sure. We allow thought and feeling, the electric charge of thought, the magnetic charge of feeling, emotion, come together and agree for what you want to create, and you don't focus on what you don't want to create. That's true, but it's only true in the moment. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. Well, when I became a man, I put away childish things, and I became twilight, like Jesus said he was. Okay, so then I could see Jesus not only saying, where are your accusers? Neither do I condemn you. But I could see him saying, you are a whitewashed wall. And all the murders of the prophets, this is Matthew 23, all the murders of the prophets are going to come upon you, because those people were ignorant. They didn't know, but the light is shining, and you know, kind of like white America, 400 years is up. 1619 were the first slaves. 2019 is when I first began to prophesy equality and BLM as the move of God. And the light and love community became vultures to attack me and Aaron and anybody who would spoke against racism. Because when you're only emanating your light body, you have no awareness of the human part of you, only the divine part. You block your awareness until one day, absence does not make the heart grow fonder in these cases. Absence becomes unfamiliarity, which becomes despising. Oh, I can't wait to get rid of this meat suit. the body is a prison. It's our job in this life to escape the prison of the body and dwell only in the light.
Wow.
Spirit over soul, right brain submitted to left brain. This is a mystical marriage, but it is an abusive mystical marriage where the feminine energy is always put underfoot, always submitted, and it's always a thing you have to keep doing. I don't have to try anymore because my feminine and masculine are equal. So when God said to me, are most of your thoughts positive or negative? And I realized most of my thoughts had become negative over time. And after a total of 20 years of celibacy, I had a sexual fall and I had to confess it before my church. So the sexual fall was the sexual energies that I had put under for 20 years. It came up and it overtook as if I didn't have a choice. I'm telling you, I walked away from seduction many times. And I went through Living Waters so that I could do Living Waters program. It's a 6-month program to eradicate sexual energy so I could live a masturbation-free lifestyle.
Wow.
And, but now, because we can stretch ourselves into almost anything. We can contort ourselves into anything if we think it's the will of God. So I'm standing on this mountaintop and Spirit starts to communicate to me, that was never my will. You must embrace your sexual desires. You must embrace your humanity to become, because if you're trying to become one with God and one with the universe, you're saying you weren't born that way. If you're trying to become one with the universe, trying to become one with God and go back home to mama's house instead, when we go to college, we come from mama's house. In other words, we come from the heavenly dimension before we're born on earth.
Yep.
That's where we came from. We came from the heavenly dimension. And so we already have that intact. We already have all that intact. It's already there. So meditate a few hours a day for a month and you're boom, it's all revived. It's all revived. Now start living life as a human being, because we were missing something in the ethereal. We were missing something up there. That's why we created time and within time matter, so that we could have an unfolding process to know what we had in the first place. But when we don't believe that we are spirit, then we try to become one with spirit all over again and reinforce that the feminine energy is bad or that it's less than, And so when Spirit began to communicate this to me, I was so full of spirit dominating over soul theology that it took 3 years before I could have even accept what Spirit was saying to me. So is that clear? Thoughts on some of this? And so long story short, I took my sexuality back, I took my sovereignty back, I left the church, left Christianity, renounced all of it so that I could start living as a human being, took my sovereignty back, took my sex life back, took my joy as a human being back, and found that I was more powerful to decree things over people and heal people than I ever was when I was living only in 1/3 of my being, the high vibration. So there's my story.
Let me just jump in, Doug, because as you guys know, and I would assume if people have been watching know, I'm a professional counselor. And so I have to do my continuing education this summer because I have to get relicensed at the end of the summer and I got to catch up. And I'm taking a training right now on narcissistic abuse in relationships.
Yeah.
And they teach that there's 3 stages of narcissistic abuse. And the first stage is idealization. And so the idea is so if you put this in the masculine feminine tense, and more often than not, unfortunately, although there are many exceptions, but I'm just going to, generalize and say you've got a male narcissist, they're going to be love bombing the female, but they're doing that so that they can be idealized. They're not doing it from a genuine place.
Right.
And so there's this idealization, right, of what it means to be a spiritual person or a good Christian or a good whatever it is, light, high vibration, however we want to talk about it. And then the second phase is devaluing your partner. So in this case, devaluing the feminine, doing it very subtly, and eventually subjugating.
Yeah.
And then the third stage is discard.
Yeah.
I don't need you anymore. I discard.
Right.
It's interesting as you're talking about this, and I'm in this training, I can see those same processes of the idealization of this aspect of life, the devaluing of this other aspect until ultimate discard, right? So what you're describing from a clinical perspective is a narcissistically abusive relationship with ourselves.
Yeah. Exactly. And so what happens is we redistribute that same spirit over soul theology to our Buddhism when we deconstruct. So we leave Christianity,
Yeah.
where we are paranoid of our sexuality and orientation, and we leave it for New Age and Buddhism, where we are paranoid of our emotions.
Yeah, but see, what we're doing is we're just the narcissist in this scenario. It's a metaphor.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody that does this is narcissistic.
Yeah.
In this analogy, we're a narcissist, so we discard one partner and we just pick up another partner and don't deal with the narcissism or the structure of it to begin with.
Right on, right on, right on.
This goes back to something else that we've talked about before, is like, light work versus shadow work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that how can anyone walk in light and not cast a shadow, right?
Yep.
Or how can anyone have a shadow in the absence of light? So the thing is that the two things go hand in hand. And so again, like when you talk about the physical and the spiritual, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're spirit beings having a natural experience. And I know the atheist crowd that follow me, they're going to have an issue with that statement, right? But the reality is that we are energy first, and that can be proven because when the body dies,
Mm-hmm.
when you experience physical death and you cease to have thought, you cease to have cardiovascular or circulatory function, you cease to have lymphatic function, right? The body is dead. There is no more, there is no presence of energy. Now,
Yes.
what the body is doing, before in life, it was operating in energy. It was a
Mm-hmm.
conduit of energy. But when it dies, it now becomes simply a decaying body,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the thing that everybody has to understand is that we are first energy. We are first consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And that, so when you talk about like the masculine and feminine energies, we're talking about light and dark. We're talking about light and dark. And we're talking about shadow and substance. We're
Yep.
talking about all of these different things. We're talking about energy and entropy, right?
Yeah.
And
Blueprint and process. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so, or you could say alpha and omega, beginning
Mm-hmm.
and end.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So basically, what I guess what I'm saying, my contribution to this is that you can't exclude one over the other, and this was something that Aaron's teaching was really instrumental to me, because if you simply say, okay, it's just material,
Mm-hmm.
it's simply material, it's all physics, and that's the end of it. But what we've learned about like physics at the quantum level, there are things that happen. I mean, for example, two people can look at the same quantum phenomena, a wave or a particle, and they see two different things. Why? Because observation influences outcome,
Yeah.
right? But we can all look at a television and say that's a television. But at the quantum level, it's something that there is no agreement on it, right? So I guess what I'm getting to is that at some point, right, that and Aaron and I have talked about this, about the wave function collapsing. That when the wave function collapses, that's when we actually have something observable or something that's tangible or material, right?
Yeah. Logos made flesh. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good way of putting it, because okay, how does the word become flesh?
Mm-hmm.
The wave function collapses, and we agree on that word.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, the blueprint in the processing, definitely. Oh, sorry. Did I interrupt? Go ahead.
No, I wanted to, and you're free to take this any direction you want, but I thought you said something so profound in the beginning that I want to invite you to go back to it. You can decide whether you want to do that or not. But you talked about getting out of deconstructing from the age that you're born into.
Right. That's where I was going.
Nobody's talking about that.
Right. All the religions were that way. So, okay. So first of all, I'm very grateful. I'm very thankful that I got to, I feel like Magellan or Marco Polo. I'm an explorer. I love adventure. I love to find stuff out by experience. So I'm very grateful that I experienced the age of Pisces in fullness, because the age of Pisces is two fish. The single eye of the Jesus age is that you have two fish,
Yep.
spirit and the soul body fusion, and you only look through one eye and not the other eye. That's the single eye of Jesus. The single eye of the actual age of Aquarius is the two fish become one, which is the masculine doing the feminine work. The man, back in the ancient days when this was created in the ancient world, a man did not draw the water at the well. Women did. So a man doing what? That's trans. That's the sign of the Son of Man in heaven for the age of Aquarius.
So real quick, does that speak to the third eye?
No, I don't. I have had New Ager after New Ager come into my inbox and become sinister as hell to try to convince me that racism doesn't exist. So, and New Age teaching is what brought them to that place. Otherwise, so I don't. Go ahead.
Let me just clarify a few things for people that don't know astrology at all. So, Pisces is two fish that are.
Aaron, sorry. You teach that? I gotta pee. I'll be right back.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Good. Then I can go get some wine when he comes back. So what he's talking about is he's talking about the precession of the equinox, and that, and so what most astrophysicists teach now is that the solar system is rotating around a center somewhere in the galaxy, just like the Earth is rotating around the sun. And as the solar system is rotating, it moves through what's called a precession of the equinox. And so there's a sign for each month, a zodiac sign for each month. When the Earth is moving around the sun, there's a zodiac sign for each age as the solar system is moving through the galaxy. And so what he's talking about is the age of Pisces. Pisces is represented by two fish that are chained together. And so he's talking about this war between the masculine and the feminine, or spirit and flesh within Christianity. And it's very interesting because the age changed. Last time the age changed was when the New Testament was being written. And regardless of what we think of the New Testament, it's just interesting to point out that you see all this fish symbolism being used in the New Testament. You see all of this water symbolism. Pisces is a water sign. So Jesus talks about a well of living water, rivers of living water. The Holy Spirit is compared to an outpouring of water and all that stuff. Now we are moving somewhere into the age of Aquarius. We're moving out of the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. Now, Aquarius, the zodiac symbol,
from the water dwellers to the water bearers.
Right, is the water bearer, the man with the water pitcher in his hand. So what Doug is doing is he's doing a comparative analysis, and he's saying that in the age of Pisces, drawing water was women's work, and it's still that way in Africa today.
Yep.
And other more
developing
progressive societies. And so what Doug is saying is that the symbol in the stars there of the man drawing the water is a merging of the masculine and feminine energy. So where I'm at war in Pisces, now you have a sign in the heavens merging. And so when we're talking about deconstructing from the ages, that's what we're talking about. Doug, I'm like you, except I don't have to pee. I'm going to get me a little bit more.
Head on. Please do. Please do. Yeah. Like I was saying, I was very grateful. I got to really fully, completely experience it. To experience the fullness of Pisces, walking in the Spirit. Paul said, I'm crucified with Christ, and only the Christ, only the high vibration, only the things we like about Jesus. Only that lives its life through me, the vessel. So I'm very grateful I got to experience that. And I'm grateful that I got to experience what the end result is. Everything suppressed will come back. So where Jesus says, you will, in John 14, he's the last conversation before the crucifixion, and he's saying to the disciples, I will see you again. And the Christ, so yeah, truly in a mystical or metaphysical sense, I will see you again, meaning if you've taken in my words and hid them in your heart, and you have, really meditated and absorbed my spirit, the spirit of my words, I will see you again, or you will see me again, means your nature will eventually start to resemble what you have been thinking on, meditating on. Your nature will start to take on the reality of my words. But the opposite is also true. All the things that are very real in the emotional state, all the things that are very real that we say are not real, all the things that are very real in the sovereign image of God. This is not subjective. This is sovereign. We are light and darkness. We are spirit and earth. Our bodies were made of earth. The soul is the merger between the two. So all the things we need to say, all the things we need to express, if we don't express it as twilight, light and darkness working together, neither is toxic when we do it that way. Okay. Think family sit-down meeting. Oldest son has stabbed sister in the eye because he's a heroin addict and he doesn't know what he's doing. We got to talk some real shit out.
Yep.
We got to talk some shit out. But it's not just I hate that you're doing this. We can't allow you to be in our family anymore. It's not just toxic, like that's it. It's love also. It's light and the darkness. So the darkness is a dark tone, like Jesus overturning the overturning the table in the temple was a dark tone. Darkness in that sense didn't mean evil. When it's a family sit-down meeting, the light and darkness are present. We need to talk some stuff out. Mm-hmm. But if you say,
darkness doesn't mean evil.
Right. But if you say, well, we're not going to focus on his heroin addiction because Joe Dispenza told us that if you focused on it, it will collapse into reality and make it worse. So we'll just let him be a heroin addict until he stabs someone else and steals our TV for money and robs a bank. We'll just ignore it because Joe Dispenza said if you focus on it, you'll collapse it into a worse reality. No, we're going to deal with that shit.
Right.
I'm grateful for Joe Dispenza and his and the light or the masculine aspect of the formulae, but the feminine aspect of the formulae must come into view and must be expressed. Otherwise, we put it in the dark body, in the basement of our experience, and then that is sovereign also, and it too will say to you, you will see me again.
Well, see, you talked about like probability, collapsing a probability, and I refer to that as collapsing a wave function. It's if we just say, okay, we agree that this collapsing this wave function is into that Joe's addiction is going to cause some problem, right? Then basically we manifest that. Because that's what we collapse the function onto. But I want to go back to something. I'm pulling up your post from 6 days ago, and I'm going to read it verbatim. Right? It said, "Thoughts create an electric surge in the morphic field. Feelings create a magnetic surge in the morphic field. This sets up probability waves to become object or reality within the quantum field, a likely result in your favor." This is what I was talking about collapsing a wave function. That's when you take action because you are now a magnet for what you want. In other words, when we think and feel like we already have that job, but we have it, but we have to apply and go to the interview. When we think and feel we already have the significant other, we have it, but that's the time to set up an account on a dating site or make yourself available in a social arena. You think and feel as the social change has already occurred, we've made peace with it, but that's the time for an intense activism because our activism has created a magnet and a portal for result. And this was the statement that really got me fired up. It's the white spiritual groups want you to take action when it comes to the job and finding the significant other, but they forbid you to take action when it comes to racial equality. Do that whole thing, because here's the thing. As you were saying this, up to that point, I was in total agreement with you. That it's thought plus action equal results. Right. So here you get to this point where what you did here is you did a hard pivot, right? Because you were saying, okay, oh, if you believe it and act on it, you can achieve it.
Yeah.
But then you got here and you said this, and so watch this. You said finally in your final paragraph here. So I'm not against Joe Dispenza or Ram Dass. I'm against the truth being used to bring us backward into the 1950s corruption because it benefits the culture that is primarily teaching these things, and that was absolutely mind fucking blowing.
Yep.
Because the whole thing is that you are speaking my crack-a-lack language. You
Yep.
said probability waves. We agree. The wave collapses. Now we have an agreed reality.
Right.
Right. So why is it then that we can have this agreed reality and we cut the threshold off at equality? And I'm not just saying, because you mentioned racial equality, but it goes deeper than that. It's racial equality, it's sexual equality, it's sexual gender fluidity equality. There are so many different things there. And basically when you hit that point, the love and light crowd checks out.
Right. They do. Because they've learned supremacy of spirit over soul.
Yeah.
So it works in the macrocosm: white over black, Russia over Ukraine,
But
Israeli state over Palestine.
So watch this, right? Yin and yang, right? Yin and yang, black and white, positive, negative, right? Yeah, good, evil, light, dark, whatever, however you want to frame that, right? But there is no primacy of yin over yang or yang over yin.
Right. So it's not just it's not just the Jesus nature that says, I'm coming back. You absorb my teachings, love one another. You absorb my teachings. He said to the people that were present in his audience, you will not have preached in all the cities of Israel until you have seen the Son of Man, the product of what you are. You're going to give birth to a new creation. And as you give birth to a new creation, you'll see me again, within you. And that's in and then he says, what I say to you, I say to all. So so it's not just the absorbed spirit of Jesus Christ's teachings that you will see again. The second coming of Christ is when it becomes an organic reality in you. The first coming of the Christ in your life is when you absorb the teachings. The second coming of Christ in your life is when you manifest them in your organic nature. That's just a knee-jerk reaction. You don't have to try. You don't have to try to think on certain things. You just walk in, and that's what I achieved by 2003 after 16 years of blood, sweat, and tears. But what I didn't know is the darkness says the same thing, because the darkness is also part of the sovereign image of God. The darkness that you suppress, the emotions that you say, you are not me. The body that is holy, has holy sacred sexuality. The orgasm is the thing that creates babies, but it also, in the orgasmic state, whatever we hold in the mind is what creates visions, dreams, and goals. The orgasm, the sexual energy, is creative. Whether you do Eastern Tantra, where there are no orgasms, the sexual energy is just held in the body, or Western Tantra, where you release it through orgasm and thrust the energy into. But if you say sexual energy, you are not the real me. According to the Apostle Paul, you are a lie, because 1 Corinthians 3 and 1 Corinthians 6 both allude to 1 Corinthians 6 and 1 Corinthians 3 are both statements that saying God will destroy you if you experience anything erotic outside of your marriage. So, and that transferred into the New Age community as well, where the body is a prison to escape from. So the darkness that you suppress, it's got a message. It's got something for your ass. It's got something for you in the long run. 15 years for some, 25 years for others, 40 years for others, but eventually it's coming. It's going to have its second coming also. The darkness that you suppress will return also, but it's not going to return in the sacred sexuality. It's going to return. Look, you should Google this. You should Google this. Buddhist yogis raping their students, raping women. Why are they doing that? Because they thought they were just light and love, and the darkness didn't exist. And so then the sexuality that they denied. Hello, Catholic priests raping boys. Hello, Southern Baptist Convention raping women. The darkness that we say is a lie comes back in whatever form we told it was. You said it was criminal, it'll come back as a criminal. You said it was addiction and relentless, it'll come back in you. I am coming again. You will see the return of your darkness if you suppress it and tell it it's a lie. It's not a lie. It is true. Sacred sexuality is the good china that you put away only for special occasions. If you treat it like it's sacred, it will treat you like it's sacred. If you treat yourself like it's an illusion, it will treat you like you're an illusion down the road. In the long game, suppressed darkness is just as much of a creator. My life burned to the ground after 2009. I tried to get into a romantic relationship 3 times in a row, and it failed because I was exactly like my God. I was exactly like as Father and Son. You've seen me, you've seen the Father. My Father, God in Pentecostal holiness. Remember, the Father is the image that you have of God, and the Son is the reality in real life, in real time. You see me, you see the Father. You see my manifestation. You want to open a restaurant? That's the Father. That's the goal. That's the dream. That's the vision. That's the Father, the progenitor. The day 10 years later where you actually open that restaurant, that's the Son of God. That's the Son of the vision, and then what it produces, the Son of man. You were mankind, but you keep going, you'll be the Son of man. You'll be the product of your yesteryear self. And so the darkness is a creator just as much. So why don't we manage our darkness by allowing us to see what happened was when I started to allow myself to express my angst against Trumpism and racism, I found it didn't take me to a dark place of kickback. It took me to the presence of God would become stronger. The joy would fill my heart more. The peace would take over even more. But so watch this. The New Age world has no problem speaking out, writing books about Christian fundamentalism, talking about it like a dog, giving reasons for its toxicity. It causes PTSD in children. It is abusive. It is narcissistic. Time to call a spade and get rid of it. But if you say anything like that about racism, eating from the wrong tree, you're eating from the wrong tree, you're eating from the wrong tree, because the New Age world, their dark body has returned for its second coming. And their dark body was the racism that they came from 400 years. Their dark body was the intense racism where they would go to church on a Sunday morning and then have a picnic where they watch a man be tortured to death, beat to death, and lynched, and then they would set his body on fire. Only in the mid-1950s did lynchings of black people and lynchings of white people who supported black people where they actually stopped. And so quantum fusion happened between Christianity and William Paley's I Am movement, the 1930s I Am spirit, the I Am movement of the 1930s through William Paley, who had an NDE, a near-death experience where a glorious being of light told him that white people are on the top of the hierarchy, black people are supposed to be on the bottom, and Jewish people are lying, malicious aliens. He was full of support of Nazism and Hitler. And he is the foundation for what is now the New Age movement. Yeah. And so when we plug our gift into the New Age spirit, of course it's going to be just like the Galactic Federation of Light, being full of racism, misogyny, and homophobia.
That's so true.
The dark body has returned because you told it didn't exist, and it returns in a malefic, icky form instead of a sacred form. So when I in 2010, I tried to get into a romantic relationship. I couldn't because I was exactly like my Father God. My Father God in Christianity was constantly convicting me not to think of sexual thoughts. So then I treated the girlfriend that way. Like, if you're attracted to that guy, I feel insecure, just like the jealous God felt insecure when I would feel a sexual thought. So it didn't work. I was dysfunctional because love and light only makes you dysfunctional because you're not balanced. I didn't care about the career path anymore. My whole life burned to the ground. And that sexual fall I had, it seemed like in that moment, it felt like the dark body had come up sovereign, because it is sovereign. It came up as, I didn't feel I had a choice. It was like it was knee-jerk reaction. It was like my new nature. Like I'm like, what? I feel, for all these years I've had a choice. For all these years I've exercised my power of choice to walk away from seduction. And now all of a sudden it's like I feel paralyzed because the dark body returns sovereignly. And this is why Buddhist yogis rape women. This is why Catholic priests rape young boys. This is why we produced Trumpism as the ideal for the New Age and Christian world. This is why we gave birth to Pat Robertson. This is why hate and love traded places. That's it. That's my message.
Dude.
So conjoin your light and darkness. It's okay to be human. You got to have your. So when I feel pain, the most conscious aware part of me, I find the most conscious aware part of me, and I let it go down. I visualize it going down, and I let it go down into the pain, into the angst, into the suffering, and it goes down, and it holds her in the arms and loves on her. He doesn't say, "You're not me. I am not my thoughts." It doesn't divorce her. It just congeals. They congeal together. Now she feels, now my pain, my suffering, my expression of angst, if I allow it to be expressed in the right way, now the two come together and become one. And since 2011, I've been doing this. By 2018, I was a new creation, and I knew I'd become the world to come. These are the best years of my life. I've never experienced the paradise, internal paradise like I do these days. And the more I spoke out against racism and Trumpism, the more elevated in the spirit world I became. Because I let the darkness speak, because I knew it was the holy sacred darkness. And it was speaking in one unison. The spirit and the bride say, come. It was speaking in one unified voice with the light. And that is what I'm bringing to the table. But I understand now why the Love and Light community kept coming into my inbox to rip me a new one for exposing racism. Their dark body had its second coming, and their dark body was the racism they inherited from the generations that they never dealt with, never looked at. If you don't know anything else but racism, if you think the extreme alt-right, if you think the religious right is the center point, then you'll think that the center point is the radical left. So then when you hear someone say Black Lives Matter, you'll think you're hearing only Black Lives Matter. Right. Because you've never known anything other than racism. And that's why you get triggered when Aaron and I expose it. So that if in this nation, Black lives have never mattered as much as white lives. So we prophetically speak Black Lives Matter until they do. We use the power of our energy to speak Black Lives Matter until they matter as much as white lives. But if you're a racist, you don't hear us saying Black Lives Matter. What you hear is you hear us saying only Black Lives Matter, and that's why you respond by the statement all lives matter. You know, and it turned my stomach so much after having loving, peaceful dialogues with at least 100 of these people in these Matt Kahn, Aaron Abke groups, and it just turned. It was like lizard coldness is what ensues when you are love and light only, and you don't allow yourself to be human. It has no grounding in humanity, and its expression becomes colder and colder and colder. The more I live away from North Dakota, the less in touch with North Dakota I am. I've been in Houston, Phoenix, Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm so out of touch with North Dakota, I don't even know it anymore. And that when you live in your light only, you are so out of touch with your feminine energy, you don't even know when it's acting out. And people bring things to you and say, hey, when you said this, when you did this, it really hurt me. And you're immediately, oh, that's projection, that's projection, that's projection. It's in you, that's why you see it in me. So are you going to tell an 11-year-old girl who's been brutally raped and she exposes her rapist, are you going to tell that little girl, you must be the rapist because you see it in him? That's where it's at. Yeah. We've got to be human. We've got to because that's the age of Pisces, though. But that's the age of Pisces. Right. That's only what you want. Don't speak what you don't want. We've got to transfer into both voices speaking at the same time. And it's not that, back to your quantum example, it's not that talking about the heroin addict's addiction it makes it worse. It's that talking about it brings it into the light of fellowship where we can work it out together and go through things hand in hand. But when you deny it and lives in the dark, when a thief is in the dark, they steal things. When the thief is in the light, they can't steal anything. That's why you talk things out.
So help me. I want you to spell this out for people, unpack this for people. The difference between darkness and denial, because it's like darkness is saying, okay, I'm unaware of what exists, but denial is saying it doesn't exist.
Right. Like Holocaust. Who are the people? Holocaust denial. Who are those people? Those are the people who what? Hate Jews.
Yeah.
Racism denial in America. Those are the people who hate Black, brown, and gay people. So denial of the exposure. Like if you're a misogynist, let's say you've been a teacher of spiritual things. Like let's say you've been a New Age teacher for 30 years, but you hate women undercover. And you've never gotten over it. You've never seen your misogyny. Guess what? That man who would normally teach real deep, profound spiritual things will look at the Me Too movement and say, don't speak about it. Don't speak about it. You're making it worse. You're making misogyny worse by speaking about it. And everybody else is like, what? You're crazy. Same thing with racism. If exposure of racism and the system we are currently living in, lots of statistics. If there's something in you that doesn't want that exposed, and how we really got to this place, if you don't want it exposed, it's probably because that stuff is in you, and your dark body is returning to take over, and you'll be triggered. And then, so what I'm saying is, even back in the day when I erroneously believed that the Creator wanted us to live a zero masturbation lifestyle, no self-pleasure, no wet dreams, clean that stuff out. Even then, at first, I went with the vineyard idea of don't focus on the problem, just gaze at the glory, just gaze at the glory, just gaze at the glory, and the sin will melt off. It never worked. The only way it worked was if I got a Living Waters program, I had 3 layers of accountability, and if I fell into self-pleasure, I would have to confess it to the group on Sunday night, I'd have to confess it to my pastor on Tuesday morning, and the pain of that is what broke that thing. And the pain of having to confess it over and over, it broke that thing out of me. And for the next many years, I had stretched and contorted my being into a masturbation-free being. So it was by focusing on the problem that I was able to overcome it. Same thing, rehab. People have gone through rehab many times and keep getting back on drugs. Why? Because it takes more than just a focus like go to these classes. It takes a focus that takes everything in you to break that thing. It takes 100% of your being. And in white America, it's going to take 100% of your being to break that racist shit out of yourselves. Wow. It's going to take that. But if you keep being told by the New Age gurus, don't say anything about that. You can speak against Christian fundamentalism. You can speak against the now inclusive White House, but you can't speak against racism because then they'll say, wrong tree, eating from the wrong tree, revealing themselves.
That was the same thing that we got from the Grace movement. Mm-hmm. You know, that when all of us were in the Grace movement, and whenever we spoke out against social injustice, or we talked about racism, or we talked about Black Lives Matter, everybody would come like, oh, don't talk about that. Just preach Jesus. Just preach love. Just stick to that. And Jesus is he's gonna work everything out. But Jesus has been a no-show.
Right. Well, that's called displacement, and it works when there's not a stronghold. It works when there's not a really bad stronghold. So, like displacement is you just increase the cloud of the positive result, increase the cloud of your mental imagery until it displaces anything negative, and that works when the negative power structures are weak. But when the negative power structures have been growing intensely for 400 years in a nation, it ain't gonna work. Displacement doesn't work. When a construction crew, when they come, their assignment is to create a Hardee's on this corner. And they get there and there's already a McDonald's there, an abandoned McDonald's. What do they have to do? They can't just create a Hardee's on top of it. The McDonald's will just go away. No, they have to do work first to remove the McDonald's, and then they can create the Hardee's. And that's why when I left and took my sovereignty and loved my humanity, and my humanity loved me, when I did that, it still took 8 years of old spirit over soul theology that we see in Buddhism, where desire causes suffering, or in Hinduism, everything is Maya illusion. Or in Christianity, I'm crucified with Christ, or in New Age, I am only high vibrating. You know, all the religions have done this in the age of Pisces. It was not about Christianity. It was about the age of mankind and the astrological reality. We spoke into the atmosphere, and then the atmosphere spoke it back to us. We speak it into the atmosphere, increase, and then the atmosphere speaks it back to you as a living God. And so that's why you have a spiritual awakening, and you're hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit say, don't talk about racism, because the atmosphere is a ready-made kingdom. The atmosphere that mankind created by fusing Christianity and lynchings together, Christianity and the genocide of Native Americans. Columbus killed 12 million brown people. That's twice as many as Hitler killed. of the Jews. We fused Christianity and murder and genocide together until they became the atmospheric spirit. So when you say in the Christian church, Lord Jesus, come into me, it's not just love, joy, and peace that comes into you. You think it is, but what comes with it is, those people are just complaining. You know, the cry for equality, they're just complaining. Quit complaining. You're creating more of the same. That spirit was what was ready-made. That spirit was already in place before you were ever born. That spirit was the charged morphic field of the atmosphere of what became Christianity before you were ever born. So when you had an awakening to it, you said, come on in, live in my body. The current morphed form of Jesus. That's why that spirit and the Pleiadians, from the 1930s IM movement, were constantly telling people that the Jews were aliens from outer space. They were lying, evil people. Book of Urantia alludes to this. The passing of a nation, it says that white people were given charge by the Creator to remove planet Earth from black, brown, gays, and indigenous people because they're not going to be come with the program. And so that intense racism, that spirit of murder, is part of the foundation of the New Age and Christian world. That's why it's going to take everything for white America to undo it. And that's, I think, why Jesus said to Pharisees in his time, Pharisees who had never themselves had never murdered a prophet, but Jesus says, you guys are going to pay the price for all the murders of all the prophets from the beginning of the world. Why? Because the light wasn't in them to be able to know it was wrong. The light is in you guys because you've seen me, you've seen the Father, you've seen the new day, you've seen the new aeon. I'm changing you guys from the age of Aries to the age of Pisces, where your eyes are now open. And because you see it, you see the ancestral mantle that's upon you to keep things in the law of Moses and literality. And you murdered the prophets who tried to bring you out of that. And so you did that, and now you're going to pay the price. And that's why white people say, I'm going to go ahead.
For a second, because I think this is so important, and this is so amazing what you're sharing, but I want people to really get this. You make the point where Jesus in Matthew 23 says all the murders of all the prophets is going to come on this generation.
Yeah.
And he's talking about the end of the age. So he's talking about the shifting from the age of Aries to the age of Pisces. And he says all the genetic reality of everything is going to come in this upheaval in, say, the next 40 years.
Right.
And I think we're seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing, and you bring up great points about Guy Ballard and the white shirts and the I Am movement. People don't realize that's the foundation of the New Age movement, and it was married to fascism.
Yeah, totally.
All this stuff is coming into harvest right now for us, which is why we're seeing all the craziness, which is why we're seeing people who claim to be love and light and claim to know about oneness, but don't give a fuck about people who are different than them. They're not one with them. They're just one ethereal thing, right? So all of this stuff is coming into manifestation. So in the same way that Jesus could say back then, all the sins of this age are going to come into this upheaval and overthrow.
Right.
Years.
Yeah. So 40 years later. Yeah.
Thing right now. And that's why we're seeing all this craziness in politics. That's why we're seeing all this fighting. That's why we're seeing people losing their mind. Because all of that energy from the previous age is coming to fruition right now. So everybody thinks the age of Aquarius is going to be glorious, but we got at least 40 years of turmoil and destruction and fighting and all that stuff that has to overturn all of that stuff.
Right. Exactly.
When
exactly.
When people talk about something
that to be highlighted.
When people talk about a birthing, right? Whenever something is birthed, there's always a travail prior to the birth.
Right.
And that's something that, people think that the age of Aquarius is just going to come in. It's all love and light, and it's all sweetness and light, and everything is going to be wonderful. No, it's not going to be that way. There are going to be, to use a biblical term, there are going to be some strongholds that have to be torn down.
Yeah.
There are going to have to be some paradigm shifts. There are going to have to be some doctrinal deconstructions that happen in order to bring this new age in. And that's the other thing too. Let me say this about the new age, right? Is that people, let me say this, that even in manifestation, there's a process, right?
Mhm.
Things don't just manifest instantaneously. There's a process. There's seed, there's time, there's harvest, right? There's there's darkness, there's twilight, there's morning, right? And so you have all of these processes, and that's the other thing too, is that people want to get to the end result without the process.
There you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we have to divorce ourselves from that concept and understand that there in order to make a baby, Doug, to what you said, there is an orgasmic process,
Yep.
right? That goes into conception. But then once you've gone to conception, you go to what? Gestation.
And
Right.
then, yeah, and finally
then-
suffering. Hmm.
And so then you go from gestation to actual manifestation. The baby has to be birthed.
Yep.
Right?
And that is painful.
It's
Mhm.
painful, exactly.
Mhm.
And so the thing that this is my issue with the Love and Light crowd is that, okay, we're approaching the age of Aquarius. Okay, great, fine. We're approaching the age of Aquarius, but this age of Pisces has to be birthed into Aquarius. That is not going to happen without some stress, without some travail, without
Yeah.
some pain, without some changes. And that's the other thing too, is that for those of us who are parents, we go from being, okay, we're single, now we're married. We're married and now we're going to be parents, right? And that change from being married to being parents is a much more profound shift
Mhm.
than going from being single to being married, because now it's not just two becoming one, it's two producing one.
Yeah. Right.
And so when we think about all of this, like the Love and Light crowd, and not just the Love and Light crowd, because I'm going to pick on the atheist crowd too. Basically, you're not going to arrive at a desired result without some process. I'm thinking about this, and let me give you an example, right? I drive a Tesla, and Elon Musk has been promising self-driving cars now for 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For 10 years, he's been promising the holy grail of the self-driving car. It hasn't happened. Why? Because getting to that level of autonomy is a process. This is something that it doesn't just go from ideation to manifestation, that there is a process between ideation and manifestation. And without going through this process, we don't actually arrive at the desired result. And that's the problem I see with both the Love and Light crowd and the atheist crowd, is that we just simply say, okay, here we are.
Yep. Yep.
We've ignored the process completely. We've ignored all of the things that we have to divest ourselves of. We ignore all of the things we have to deconstruct from, and we just simply say, okay, here we are.
Well,
Yep.
but
Yep.
the other thing that we're maintaining is this idea of the other. So race, this whole thing could be summed up in that: the other, my dark side, my feminine energies, my flesh, whatever. That's the other. I just want to be this. I don't want to be the other.
Right.
Also, with racism, there's the other that's out there, right?
Yeah.
But then also with atheism, I see this a lot. Like anybody that's not a materialist, anybody that's talking like Doug is tonight, or like I talk about sometimes, we become the other in that sense.
Yeah.
No,
Right.
this is the one way. And so we're still dealing with the same problem, whether it's the Love and Light crowd, whether it's the Christian crowd, whether it's the atheist crowd. It's still this dividing that we're doing within ourselves and amongst ourselves, both interpersonally and intrapersonally, right?
Right. And so
Let me pull something back in.
Sure,
This
sure.
is something that I used to teach when I preached. It was like, love one another right? And so I used to break that down or unpack that into love one and others.
Mm-hmm.
Love one,
Yep.
love the one, that's you, and
Right.
others. But that loving has to be a simultaneous exercise. It has to be a holistic exercise. And so, Aaron, to your point, what happens is that irrespective of whether it's fundamentalist Christianity, whether it's New Age, love and light, whether it's atheism, is that we're always projecting the other.
Right.
The other. And I think that in order to really successfully birth in this new age, that we have to get past the whole concept of the other and embrace the concept of the one.
Right. Hey, can I interrupt you? Can I interrupt you?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's what the white racist spirituality groups, exactly what they say. Watch
Right.
this. Two posts they'll make. They'll make two posts. One post says, I won't judge Trump because, hold on. I won't judge Trump because even Hitler was one with God. Who am I to judge? And then watch post number two. Watch post number two. Barack Hussein Obama will pay for his sins. So will Hillary Clinton will pay for the terrible sin. So wait a minute. You just said I won't judge Trump because even Hitler was one with God. Then you judge the hell out of Obama.
Judge everyone
And
else.
then, so the non-judgment doctrine that is being falsely advertised as the age of Aquarius will allow you. Why? Okay, if they say speaking against racism will just create more of the same, then your books on speaking against Christian fundamentalism, that would have created more Christian fundamentalism all over the earth by now. If speaking about a problem creates more of the same, then speaking about dogma and hell doctrine would have created more hell doctrine. But it didn't. It delivered people from hell doctrine. And speaking about racism delivers people from racism. It's just the difference is you wanted hell doctrine to go away. You wanted pastoral control of your life to go away. You wanted to leave that so it was easier to make an exodus. You don't want racism to go away because it's the only thing you've ever known, and supremacy feeds the endorphins of the brain. And that's why you come against Aaron Tomlinson. That's why your guru came against Aaron Tomlinson the day he spoke mightily against racism. And then when he's kicked back, some of them would write a big long thing about what a victim they are because of what he said and his standing his ground. I mean, it's ridiculous. Suddenly you are a victim.
Check this out, right? If you and let me use myself as an example because I'm a cancer survivor, right? I cannot be a cancer survivor without having first acknowledged that I had a cancer.
Right. There you go.
In other words, if you don't say
you have to see it
is the problem, you can never get to a solution.
Right. Right on. And you can't see it if you've never known a contrast. If you've never known anything else but the religious right, and you can remove hell doctrine and you can remove pastoral control, but you're thinking, your geometry is still the religious right. And you can go away from hell doctrine, Christianity, judgmentalism against gays, judgmentalism against sex, judgmentalism against other people for their doctrines. You can remove that, but then you judge the fuck out of anti-racist activists. So what is that? Look in the mirror. You who do that, look in the mirror. And if you will take this opportunity, this holy golden moment to see yourself, you can be delivered and that shit will evaporate out of your system.
Well, hang on. Let me do something to tie this together because at the beginning of this conversation, you talked about heart geometry and you just talked about it now. So what I'd like you to do is to tie what you started off with to the beginning. Let's talk about this heart geometry and understand this because I think that this is key to understanding how to unpack the biases that we hold.
Yeah, geometry is a shape. John 5:37, Jesus told the Pharisees they couldn't see God's shape. That's the shape is the word in the King James.
Yep.
Form. You can't see God's form is the NIV. So the human heart has a shape. So an angry person has a different heart shape than a kind person. Their heart shape is different. Okay, so spirit dominate over soul. Okay, let me say it this way. if the geometry of Christian fundamentalism is that you are fearful of your sexuality, that it might drag you down, you leave fundamentalism and you go to New Age, and now you have the same geometry. It's just you transfer the type of fear. You were scared shitless of your sexuality, and now you're scared shitless of your emotions, that I might create something negative by speaking. And so you didn't do a damn thing. You didn't deconstruct the geometry. It's the same geometry, different area of your life that you're fearful of. You're walking on eggshells about sex. Now you're walking on eggshells about your emotions. And I am living proof that speaking in emotion and speaking in spirit in one voice created a new me. Like I've never felt so much peace, joy. It's the new world. I'm made of heaven and earth. My masculine and feminine came together, creating the 0 point where one is not submitted to the other. And there's no bondage then. I don't have to try now. I don't have to meditate to go forward. I don't have to do spiritual practices to keep. I'm perpetually moving forward, because once you're masculine and feminine, your logic and your intuition, your visual of the final outcome of a better world, and the process of very real conversations that it was going to take to get there. Once those two come together in you, you have just been released into perpetual motion, and you don't have to try anymore to get there. There's nothing to walk on eggshells about after that. And you know, if you speak out against something, it takes you to a dark place. You feel icky. You know if it's icky, judgmental energy, and you just don't do that anymore. And you wait till your heart is clean enough to be able to speak out against a social injustice in a way that takes you, like in my case, to a better place and a better place and a better place. And the more I spoke harshly against Trumpism and fascism and racism, the more anointed I became, the higher elevated in the spirit world I became, and the more fulfilled as a human being I became, because I'm married. My spirit and soul are married, and the word has brought to pass. It has brought to pass the saying that is written: love one another. My spirit and my soul learn to love one another. In Paul's Christianity, they hate each other. The spirit lusts against the flesh, and the flesh lusts against the spirit, so that you cannot do what you would. I am sold to sin, but thank God. So the power of Christ had to deliver you from your feminine energy. That's what the real reason he didn't want people to be married, because
so
he was doing it in himself.
You love one and others.
Yep. But if your spirit and soul love each other, it'll automatically, organically work its way out into the world, where white will love black, Russian will love Ukraine, Israel will love Palestine. If we start here, it will work its way outward. If we keep spirit over soul, it will always be in the macrocosm: white over black, gay over straight, or straight over gay, gay over trans, etc. Yeah. We got to wrap this up.
Let me take this same principle. Let me just real quickly, because I put a video on YouTube today that I did Sunday, because I just felt some inspiration about it, and I call it "What Happens When Logic Becomes Lord." Because that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing people who are deconstructing, and they have to find some plumb line. Like Christianity was the plumb line, the Bible was the plumb line. This is the measure, this is the authority, the rule. And because logic and critical thinking help people deconstruct from Christianity, now they're ready to make logic Lord over their life. And so what I did was I did a deep dive into the left hemisphere, which erroneously, by the way, I found out is attributed to logic, language, and linear thinking, versus the right hemisphere. So urban legend on the internet is that the left hemisphere is masculine, the right hemisphere is feminine. That's absolutely been proven to not be true. But there are logical processes and language for sure in the left hemisphere of the brain, right? So there's been lots of studies done about the way these two interact. And when someone chooses what they're calling logic, which is the critical thinking aspect that gets them out of what they were in, that if you localize in that area of the brain, you literally become an asshole. What the left side of the brain is designed to do is to break everything down into its parts. So actually, when logic in that sense becomes Lord, it furthers division.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It creates more division. And so I love what you're saying, Doug, because what you're saying is we need to stop valuing one aspect of ourselves over another aspect of ourselves.
Yeah.
The right hemisphere is more contextual. The right hemisphere is more big picture. The right hemisphere is more relational.
Mm-hmm,
The left
mm-hmm.
hemisphere
Come on.
breaks things down into its parts.
Yeah.
With
Come on
small,
with that.
we see this in the health community. We went from a relational model that I had in rural America in the 70s, where when I cut my head open, my family doctor that treated the family had to show up at the emergency room to stitch my head up because he knew the family and we had the relationship. That's holistic. That's contextual.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Assembly line bullshit that we go through now in our healthcare system where everything's broken down into its smallest parts. And so this really concerns me. And if anybody's listening, those of you that are saying, I'm going to make logic the thing now, I'm going to lead by logic, you're doing the same thing. You're using the same geometry, perpetuating the same problem, because we're so much more than that. We have our artistic nature, we have the holistic contextual nature in the right brain. They know now that our heart has an intelligence. They know now that our gut has an intelligence.
Yeah.
And we don't need to value any one of those over the other.
Yeah.
Merge them and bring them together. So the masculine logic and the feminine contextualness of relationship and heart knowledge and intuition that comes from the gut and all of that stuff needs to function holistically rather than exalting one as Lord over the other. So I see the same mistake going on in deconstruction communities where they're not deconstructing from the geometry that you're talking about. Doug, but I don't think that's being talked about at all. So I just
not at all.
So let me chime in real quick, because this is something that I've dealt with personally, because I say, okay, logic and reason rule over everything. Well, okay, logic and reason rule over everything, except that there are things that you can't logically explain.
Yeah.
There are things that defy logic. And even in the scientific realm, right? Quantum physics defies logic. String theory defies logic. Gravitational theory defies logic. There's a lot of things that we know scientifically that don't mesh with what we call logical reality. So what does that mean? That there are things that we have to hold out as unknown, as metaphysical, as spiritual, whatever you want to call it, until we have a logical explanation for it.
I'm going to push back on that, Derrick. I'm going to push back on that because that's still putting logic at the engine to the train. And what I'm trying to say is that it's one component. So when we got into religion, let me just finish real quick. When we got into religion, what we did was we checked our logic at the door. Like we checked I don't know about you guys, but to a certain degree, I checked my brain at the door, right? So when I went back outside the door and I picked it back up, it helped me realize, oh my God, this is toxic and all this stuff. So that doesn't mean that it supersedes other aspects. It just means that it's a component that I neglected and didn't develop. So in that sense, it became the feminine, if that makes sense. And so what I'm trying to say is, like, if we say reason and logic will eventually explain everything, then we're putting it as the engine to the train rather than functioning as a holistic.
Can I put it in a different way?
What you said, but that's how I interpreted it.
No. Let me put it a different way. Is that given a sufficiently long timeline, we'll have an explanation for virtually everything that we know to be true. Do we have an explanation for it now? No. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that there are things like consciousness, there are things like metaphysical, there are things that we have to table those topics in those spaces until we have a better explanation.
Got it.
Well, I'm not saying
I think I got it. So what I'm hearing you say, sorry to interrupt, but what I'm hearing you say, because I'm going to make sure I'm understanding correctly, is like there are things that logic and reason will eventually be able to explain. And until then, we have to rely on these other parts of ourselves to engage and experience these things until logic.
But let me take it a step further, Aaron. Let me take it a step further, because you're absolutely right. But What I'm saying, and this is my deference to you, and what you're saying is that there are certain things that are right brained, that they are creative, that they are that they're not in the realm of logic, that they're more fuzzy thinking and all of that. And we have to understand that consciousness has to accommodate that.
Yeah, got it.
We can't simply say that logic and reason is the ultimate be all to end all, or and again, I say that logic and reason, given a sufficiently long timeline, will explain most things. They will not explain everything, and we have to keep the possibility, or keep open to the possibility of right brain thinking. This goes back to something that you taught, Aaron, about left hand path versus right hand path. Okay, so now we're saying we're looking at this and saying, okay, the left hand path is not evil, as we've been taught. That the left hand path is equal to the right hand path. But the same thing is that we can't get so left hand path oriented that we ignore the right hand path, because the right hand path is the metaphysical, is the spiritual, is the consciousness. Those are things those things exist empirically. It isn't like well, we could just dismiss that. No, these are things that we have to include in our thought paradigm, into our belief paradigm, into our living paradigm. We have to include those. That's what I'm saying. So,
yep. So what I would add to that is logic is nothing without its intuition, one. And number two, some things that logic can't explain now, one day it will, but when it does explain it through logic, guess what's going to happen? They're going to look back over the century and say intuition was telling us that for years and years and years, and we didn't believe it.
But wait a second. Once we get to that point where logic has explained some things, we're still going to have a level where intuition, there's always going to be that space where intuition and creativity are dictating part of our lives, and we cannot ignore that. That's the point that I'm getting at. And this is the thing, like that, Aaron, you've helped me out with this, because if I were to become strictly materialist and say, okay, logic and reason is the be all to end all, that's not it. If someone approaches me with that premise, I completely reject that.
My point is, and then I'll let you talk, Doug, just one sentence. My point is, friends of ours, I'm watching their posts, and like they're going down this logic sort of left brain path. And if they do that at the expense of cutting off the other aspects of themselves, people who have had their corpus callosum severed, and they'll have two personalities. They'll have a right brain personality and a left brain personality. And I can tell you from all the studies, the left brain personality is an asshole and very divisive and very, because that's what the left brain does. It breaks everything down into its parts. The right brain sees everything more in the big picture and holistic.
So to your point, Aaron, empathy and compassion exists only in the right brain.
Right.
It only exists there.
And in the heart too, I think.
Well, I mean, but the heart is connected to the right brain. The heart is not a left brain.
Right. It's not a left brain or right brain function. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Doug. I promised you one sentence.
Okay, Doug,
no, I'm just saying I hit my end. I hit my fatigue. So I'm gonna have to depart. If you guys want to continue, I'll just end by saying, don't plug your spiritual faculties into a biblical energy field that is anti-sex, and don't, in fact, affirm your sexuality. It'll treat you well, and it'll become responsible if you believe it is. And don't plug your spiritual faculties into an energy field that says emotion is evil or bad or eating from the wrong tree, because then you'll walk on eggshells. You will be imbalanced no matter which energy field, Christianity or New Age. Hinduism, Buddhism, all that. It was of the age of Pisces. And do not believe anybody who tells you that the age of Aquarius is actually the age of Pisces on steroids, or the age of Pisces intensified, because that's the mistake that Caiaphas and the Pharisees made. They believed that when Jesus, the Messiah, would show up, he would intensify the law of Moses. No, he did away with it. He threw the baby out with the bathwater and made the sign of the Son of Man in heaven was a man who, or a woman who was righteous without the law. Trans is the sign of Son of Man in heaven now. We are becoming spirit and soul fused together, masculine and feminine fused together. I'm not saying you should be transsexual. I'm saying that that is one of the signs of the time of Aquarius. That's the sign that we're supposed to visibly be seeing and saying, hey, that's a holy thing right there. We are killing them. There were, was it 300, was it almost 400 trans people lynched on tree branches in 2018 alone. I mean, we kill what we don't understand. And so intersex people are born intersex, 1.7% of the population, just as many redheads. It's just as many as born redhead. I walked in life with a man whose name was Justin Time, and he was born Derrick. He was a Jewish. He was on that rabbi. He was on that rabbi level of Jewish teaching, and he did a Jewish teaching at my birthday party in 2002. A man full of virtue. He competed in men's bodybuilding competitions. You know, with the bodybuilding poses, shirt off. There's no way you would ever say this person was born a woman. And he loved Jesus. He was a messianic Christian. He loved Jesus, and Jesus' grace was on him, and he lived his life the way that was authentic to his soul, which was as a man, even though he was born Deborah, assigned female at birth. So there's an example of someone. And so I see online people look for one transgender person that shot up a school, and they say that's what all trans. Why would you do that? Because you hate what you don't understand. So let's not plug our energy field into anything that is of the religious right, because it's passing away. And in between ages, both right and left have something to contribute. But when the end of the age comes, whether it be Jesus' time of Aries becoming Pisces, or our time, Pisces becoming Aquarius, at the end of an age, both sides no longer have a voice. Now the religious right and Herod, Trump, Putin, all that stuff gets swallowed up. You've missed your day of visitation, Jesus said to the religious right, and now your house is left unto you desolate. That house has to become desolate for the unveiled new world of inclusivity, which the religious right will always hate. It's just their nature. And oh, by the way, the unveiling is that of Cyrus. Cyrus, if you look up the Cyrus cylinder, that's who Cyrus really was. He established. He gave reparations. Oh God. Cyrus gave reparations to the slave people, sent them home, not just the Jews, many slave peoples. He created a multi-ethnicity state. Multi-faiths. The goddess shrines were honored. The Marduk shrines were honored. He himself made a fresh covenant with their god Marduk, which Jeremiah falsely prophesied that Marduk would fall. No, he was established. Cyrus heard from his god Marduk to send the Jews home to their homeland, because that's the kind of god Marduk was. And then Yahweh falsely took credit for doing that. But anyway, the point is, don't plug yourself in to the religious right when the age is ending, because the religious right will be swallowed up, the left will be unveiled to create that new world, and then the right and the left will have equal validation at some point once again, because both will start over fresh in each new age. But like I said, I'm at the end of my
okay. I got to ask you a question. I got to throw a question out. Right, Pat Robertson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Robertson. The human race produced Pat Robertson and Trump and Rush Limbaugh, and the religious right gave birth to these symptoms. So I can't judge the symptoms. It's just a heart reality that gives birth to this hatred that calls itself love. Pisces that calls itself Aquarius. No,
that's it right there.
And so his departure was at age 93. The word agape and the word thelema, that's in Greek, love, will. They both carry the gematria of 93. You add the letters of agape, love, and it equals 93. In gematria, I don't mean some other numerical system. I mean actual gematria. It equals 93. And you add the words thelema, which means will, and it also equals 93. So love and will not submit to love, and love will not submit to will. So love submitting to will is irresponsible hedonism, And will submitting to love is detachment from humanity until you don't care about humanity.
Dude.
So when love and will become one, this is the 93, and him passing at 93 is a sign that the limo, not the religion, but the pattern will continue on after Christianity dies, just like Pat Robertson died.
Doug, I know we got to let you go, but dude, I feel like I've gone to school today.
Mm-hmm.
I always feel like you. I always feel like you're the professors in the. I think I put in the group chat. You know, the doctors in the house.
Right on.
But I just want to tell you, and I know I got to let you go, so I'm not going to keep it long.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to tell you, of all the stuff we've done, all the times we've talked, I think tonight was the purest, the most powerful, and the most articulate that I've ever heard you speak on these topics.
Thank you.
The joy for me to have been a part of this conversation, and it's an honor for me to call you a friend, and I love you very much.
I love you, Aaron. I love you, Derrick. And I'm so happy you and I finally connected. That's awesome. I feel the genuineness of your heart.
Well, with that being said, Aaron, I'm going to turn it over to you to.
Thanks for coming to Doug's class, his college level class on what's happening in the world. I'd encourage you to go back and listen. Truly, not to get religious, but truly a prophetic word, meaning it's speaking to culture, it's speaking to social issues, it's speaking to the heart, and it's speaking to the future. So thank you for coming to class with Professor Doug, and love you guys, and peace and hair grease. We're out.
All right.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.